Kasey was kind of a little bit of a wallflower, and kind of stepping out of that introverted wallflower and having a voice and kind of stepping into a leadership role, and getting really good feedback from others around me. So I've definitely experienced that very recently.
So now we have the Kasey the lion, or what's
I don't know.
what's your image besides the wallflower?
I don't think we're quite at lion stage, but we're getting there. Like I'm somewhere between wallflower and lion, somewhere on that continuum.
Awesome. What is the value of investing in your own leadership development? Welcome to another episode of Relearning Leadership, where we explore a specific leadership challenge and break it down to help improve your leadership, your organization, and just possibly your personal life. I'm Pete Behrens, and in this conversation, I'm joined with Kasey Rivas and Sonny Mendoza, two leaders who recently completed a 9-month journey to improve their own leadership. This is a guided cohort-based program that meets weekly to learn, practice, and share. Kasey Rivas is the Associate Director of Strategic Partnerships with the March of Dimes. Sonny Mendoza is an IT Transformation Manager with Open Dealer Exchange. And together they share their stories about investing in themselves as leaders. Enjoy the conversation. Kasey and Sonny, it sounds like a hippie band from the 70s. I just want to say that it's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here.
Both of you have been part of a deeper program, and maybe Kasey, I'll start with you. What led to a decision to go into this maybe deeper exploration of your own leadership?
Yeah, when I first started looking into potential leadership programs, I was getting into a new position at my job, and it was a new leadership position. I really wanted to look at what I could do to grow, not just as a leader, but also as a leader in the public health space. And Agile came up as an option, a little bit out of the box from what we would normally do in public health, but it seemed to check all the boxes I was looking for as far as, that growth mindset, catalyst mindset, like trying to grow beyond just being a directive leader or an assertive leader, but taking into account all the different aspects of being a leader and really embracing your team and all the different qualities they have. So that's really why I started in this process. And after taking the initial basic kind of agile courses, as I was doing that, I was like, I want to continue this journey. And that's why I ended up with this advanced kind of agile leadership training.
Awesome. Yeah. Sonny, anything to add to that? What led to your decision?
Yeah, very similar to Kasey, but the only thing I would add is that just this desire to help others as well, and knowing that in order for me to be helpful to others, I needed to continue to learn myself and bring new thoughts and new ideas and new aspects to everything as well. So,
Yeah. Now, Kasey, you mentioned Agile, and a lot of times people ask us kind of what that is, we're the Agile leadership journey, and but we don't really teach Agile. I'm curious how that showed up to you in terms of what Agile meant to you in this way.
In this journey that I took with you all, it really shows up in each little aspect because you're always considering the different ways that people interact, the way that they communicate, and the way that they do their job, and you're embracing those little differences and finding ways that you can get kind of the best out of everyone on your team and do it in a collaborative way and move work forward. And I think that's where it's not like that agile, like all of the definitions of agile that you're like learning about, but you're learning about how you can take that same mindset into this leadership position and really embracing that with your team that you're working with. And it's just interesting because you don't think about it as you're doing it, but after the fact, looking back, you're like, wait, that all like fit into this agile definition, but in a different way of looking at it. Like you're not just talking about, each little definition of agile, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know you both work in very different organizations, right? A little more health versus the automobile industry, right? Nonprofit, for profit, and Sonny, I know you're much more in kind of that realm of traditional. Well, I'd say traditional agile transformation scope. So I imagine the agile word kind of fits quite a bit into the lexicon of what you're already doing.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And it really helps to empower others. And I think that was the one piece that really kind of stuck with me personally, and I think really helps out is the fact that the underlying concept of we are a group of individuals. We are not just widgets that perform work. I think that is what's kind of drawn me a lot closer to agile because it's that focus on the individuals, focus on the people themselves, and so that you can kind of begin to collaborate a lot better. You can communicate a lot better because you're concentrating on the individual, not the end result or not the thing that's being produced.
Let's talk maybe just a little bit about the discoveries. I mean, one of the keys that I think we try to do for leaders is maybe open up a couple new doors and windows and in your own leadership. And I'm curious, what were the discoveries for you in terms of maybe something you didn't maybe expect or something you look at it and say, oh, was I really doing that? Was there anything that maybe stood out to you? Maybe start with you, Sonny, and then Kasey.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that stood out for me was the my ability, or I should say, my lack of ability to empathize in the right way. I always thought I
Hmm.
was, a very caring individual, but in through this, you know, leadership training, I realized that oftentimes I would jump into a problem solver kind of mode where I would immediately be like, okay, you're bringing me a problem, and I would attack the problem. And okay, let's fix this
Hmm.
when there was an opportunity there to meet that individual and kind of empathize and say, okay, well, how is this impacting your day to day? How is this impacting your ability to show up for work and do things? And so that was a big, I guess, idea or change that I didn't really focus on before that I'm trying to focus a lot more on now.
Hmm. Yeah, just that subtle shift of focusing on the problem versus the person in the problem in some ways, which connects to empathy. Kasey, you were chuckling there.
I mean, I just think everything Sunny just said is very in line with my kind of journey too. But also, this process of learning really made me think and also empowered me to believe that I could do more than where I was still. Like I'm in this small leadership role. I started to believe like I can continue my journey. I can continue being a leader, whether it's in my organization or elsewhere, at home. And I started, automatically kind of doing these things in practice without thinking about it. And I I think that's like one of the biggest wins
Hmm.
for me in this process was just that I was able to empower myself in this journey and know that I can learn beyond just being a directive leader or like being a problem solver. Like I kind of was in that same or being a perfectionist. I can embrace all of these things and they can all be a part of my leadership journey. And I can also recognize that other people have all these different aspects and embrace those as well.
One of the things I think gets frustrating is you get these new insights in yourself. You start seeing leadership differently, and then all of a sudden you start to see other leaders differently. And I'm curious if you feel some frustration or you see some things now in other leaders that it's like, oh man, that's a mistake or a missed opportunity, or you know, how are you handling that? Are you seeing that, and how are you handling it?
I have definitely recognized this in my own organization amongst leaders. A lot of leaders that I work with, a lot of the different, whether it's at the executive level or, mid level or down, a lot of the leaders have just kind of gotten there by happenstance or like over time, and they haven't gone through these different trainings like this training, right? And so I am recognizing like, wait, that person would really, really benefit from, this process, this journey, because it you don't think like you think I'm a manager, I have all the pieces I need, but you only know what you know. And so I am recognizing that as I'm like meeting with different people. I'm like, oh, this person would really benefit from this, leadership training, because it is an amazing process and it's a journey, and you really learn about yourself as well as others in that process.
Yeah, interesting and frustrating at the same time. Sonny, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to that is it also allowed me to pay attention a little bit more to the impact to the other people in the team. So when I see something, a leader do something like that, taking a quick scan of the room and seeing
Hmm.
everyone else's, nonverbals, it's been eye-opening to be able to recognize that there is a direct impact to um, some of those items that or some of those decisions that people are making or some of the words that they're using, seeing that direct nonverbal impact by others. That's kind of what I'm starting to pick up on a lot more, and just trying to understand, okay, how can I assist with that? How can I correct that? How can I prevent that from happening again? So that way, these individuals can remain engaged in this project or in this opportunity.
I love that you said that, Sunny, because I found that I've been trying to find ways that I can demonstrate or model like what I've learned with other leaders in those situations where I'm seeing like, how are other people reacting? Is there a chance for me to kind of step in and model what should be done here? So anyway, sorry, I jumped in there. I just wanted to say
No,
that because I found
please.
myself doing that too, kind of watching and then also finding ways that I can potentially step in or model, like, maybe they'll catch on to like, this is how we should be doing it because people are responding to this, this modeled behavior.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting how much awareness plays a part. Like you've become more aware, and all of a sudden you see things, right? Which gives you access to scan the room, gives you access to actually assess in real time. And what's cool about that, it's a real learning process. Even if you're not doing it yourself, you can learn how other leaders are doing it just by seeing and observing that. It's interesting. You
Hmm.
know, both of you went through what we call a cohort program, right? Where it's not just one-on-one coaching, not just a class. It's really kind of that little bit more intimate group of leaders that are on a journey together, like a hiking group or something. Describe that a little bit for me. What was that like? Were you surprised by it? Was it it's a little different than a lot of leaders get when they're thinking about leadership education in a classroom slash one-on-one coaching, which are probably the typical leadership development models. So I'm curious for you guys to maybe share that experience.
Yeah, for me, it was kind of comforting, being around like-minded individuals. It's just like, oh my gosh, they're going through the same troubles that I'm going through, and yeah, I am not going crazy. I am, thinking the right way, and so that was there was some comfort in that, but there was also some accountability there as well, which is kind of
Hmm.
unique with the cohort, and it was meeting on a week by week basis. We're going to discuss something, we're going to learn something, we're going to commit to practice, and then coming back the next week, and now you have to face your cohort and say, okay, did I practice? Did I do the thing? Did I pass? Did I fail? And it's kind of almost like a little weekly retrospective that you don't really get with some of the other classes when it's just kind of a 2-day session and then you move on. So that was one of the parts of it that really worked out the best for me.
Yeah. I mean, I would say exactly what you said, Sunny. Adding to that, I will say I was nervous, a little bit scared jumping into this type of learning. I tend to be a little bit of an introvert. And so I was like, man, what is this going to look like to be talking to strangers about my leadership skills and my, weekly, but there was a warmth to it, and there was this camaraderie or kinship that we built over the weeks and over the, the two iterations of the cohort. And with that, I learned so much because I was free to like be open and share and be vulnerable. And I don't think I would have had that same experience in a larger classroom setting, or setting where you're just sitting there listening to somebody teach you, right? So I think it's just incredibly valuable. And the accountability is, if you're somebody who likes to like show up for people, or you're like don't want to fail people, it's amazing, because the accountability, you're really showing up every week and you're doing your work, and it makes you remember during the week as you're having your team meetings and your projects that you're working on. It reminds you like, oh, I need to be practicing, so then when I go meet with my cohort at the end of the week, I can report back on what I did. So yeah, I think it's just such a more rich experience than you would get in just a typical classroom.
Yeah, it's interesting how that almost, I don't know, the other person makes you more accountable. Sometimes we do these cohorts inside of a company and the leaders already know each other. And so sometimes there's this weird element of, well, I don't have to show up this time, or they know, there's these excuses. And for some reason, these cohorts that come, leaders coming from different companies, that accountability feels stronger. And I'm not sure what the dynamics of that is or what the human side of that is, but it's definitely an interesting one.
Yeah. I mean, I was sometimes even thinking like, I have to show up so I can find out how so and so did on their like goal for the week, right? Or what they really wanted to focus on and work on. Whereas definitely if it was my own work team, I probably would have been found potentially an excuse to not show up. Like, oh, I have another meeting, or I have a lot of work to do, I can't show up. So definitely that stranger accountabilities, whatever that is, that comes into play with this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
would agree.
It's a bit of I tell leaders when they do a program like this, or even a classroom setting, like it's okay to be selfish to some degree, like pull away from your work, and investing in yourself is a bit selfish, right? It is a bit, you're spending time on yourself, but hopefully for a better purpose, right? Hopefully for improvement in some dimension in the organization. Was there ever a moment, Kasey, you reminded me, was there ever a moment of, oh crap, why did I do this? Or, what did I get myself into here? Did either of you ever experience that, like regret, I guess, in through the program, and how'd you get through
The moment all of the calendar invites came through for the weekly meetings, I was like, what did I do? But in the end, like what I gained is so much more than the time that was invested. It was so well worth it. And I gained so much. I'm a different person than I was when I started, for
Oh,
sure, which I
thank
think
you.
that might be
Awesome.
interesting here, but and I think part of it is around the journey and learning about leadership in general, but also it's about being vulnerable in that space with strangers in that cohort. And you do change a little bit because you're learning from them and you're growing with them into something more and something different.
Yeah, I would agree, Kasey. And the only thing I would add to that would be that that moment that I discovered something in myself that I didn't know was there, or didn't really kind of, I was like, oh no, I why why am I here? This is not a good feeling, because I'm like exposing, or I'm learning something that, wow, I thought I was good at, or I thought I understood this. And so there's a little bit of that hesitation of, oh, this might turn out really, really bad for me. So why am I here? But yeah, sticking with it, and realizing that, yes, there is learning that needs to happen. And really the rest of the cohort kind of being there, lifting you up, exposing some of their vulnerabilities as well, just kind of made you feel like, okay, nobody's perfect. We're all learning here. It's okay.
Growth hurts. I had to remind myself that a couple times. I'm like, my son gets growing pains, right? Like growth isn't easy, and growth isn't painless, right? So definitely there were those kind of moments of like, oh, there's something in me I need to change. And that doesn't always feel good. But I had to remind myself growth is not easy.
No, I remind leaders sometimes practicing like this is like going back to middle school. It's like you're learning this new skill that's not comfortable yet, and so it comes out very awkward and just like a middle schooler trying to learn to socialize, right? These programs are not cheap, right? They're not inexpensive, and I'm curious. Was it difficult to get funding for this? And if it's not too difficult to ask or answer, what was that like to actually budget for this and get this part of your to put this into your plan?
So coming from a nonprofit, as you can imagine, um, this wasn't in our budget. I actually got a grant for leadership training, and this was what I chose to use that grant for, which I'm really happy that I did in the end. But definitely, if you're working in kind of this nonprofit space, it's important to invest in your professional development. It's important to invest in your leaders. So I think the more organizations that can find, that budget to do stuff like this with your leaders, it's super important to do. But it's not easy. Definitely like in this world where, funds are not easy to come by. It's not easy, but it's definitely worth the investment.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it was. Thankfully, we had a couple of very small wins early on with this agile transformation. And so we were able to kind of improve some of the ways that we were doing things, and we were able to increase efficiencies. And so I just kind of leveraged that to say we could be even better, right? And there are additional opportunities out there for us to improve, but we have to go out and learn them. We have to discover them. We have to be a part of that community. So for me personally, it was just kind of being able to have those small wins to kind of lean on to show that we're at the start of this journey and we could go a lot farther if we continue and we're dedicated to it.
Well, I'm glad to hear that this wasn't punishment for both of you. uh,
Yeah.
yeah, we more often get the desire to change side versus the I have to change side. So I appreciate your effort to get the funding for that. One of the things that I find to be the most valuable is when somebody else notices a change in us. And I'm curious if either of you have had that experience from things you've been working on where you were recognized or somehow it stood out to somebody that something's different or not the same as it usually is. And curious if there's a story there to share.
So I actually recently my manager was out on leave for some time, and I was stepping into kind of some of the leadership of the projects that she had been overseeing to help move things along. And the feedback I got from others on the team, as well as her manager, was all positive. It was like, wow, like you've done a really great job of not just moving this work forward, but bringing us all together to do this and, kind of fit all the pieces and recognizing who's good at what and getting that, getting the work out of everybody from different things. And so feedback was a part of my goal in my journey was, inviting feedback. And I've tried to do that. And I think I've gotten it. And I've gotten that positive feedback of seeing that kind of change of Kasey was kind of a little bit of a wallflower, and kind of stepping out of that introverted wallflower and having a voice and kind of stepping into a leadership role and getting really good feedback from others around me. So I've definitely experienced that very recently.
So now we have the Kasey the lion, or
I don't know.
what's
We're
your
not.
image besides the wallflower?
I don't think we're quite at lion stage, but we're getting there. Like I'm somewhere between wallflower and lion, somewhere on that
Awesome.
continuum.
Awesome. We're gonna have to build that the metric there and choose your animal.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Sonny, how about for you?
Yeah, for me, I think probably the biggest recognition, and is probably the one that I'm most happy about, is with my team. And as we work together to start looking at 2024 and what we're going to do, um, they notice that I'm a little bit more open and lot less directive. I am asking a little bit more questions and not just problem solving, and really kind of trying to work with them to collaborate and deliver a team objective or a team goal.
Mm.
And so I think that that's probably one of the biggest changes, I would say, that we're seeing, is that we're having a lot more just very candid, very open discussions within our team, and I like that. I think they're starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with that.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And that's, that is the goal when you think about leadership, right? It's not just your change, but how does your change impact other change, right? How does your change impact the team, the organization, the customers, the experience? We call that catalyst, and that's really the key kind of aspect of, the change agent in an organization. Maybe it's just kind of a parting question, or what to leave some of our watchers and listeners with is, what might you say to somebody who, really hasn't thought, or maybe has thought about it, but is not really sure what to do as a next step in their leadership development? Any thoughts or comments about what you might recommend to them as something they might consider, besides just saying, hey, join this program? That's very selfish, but something maybe a little bit more nuanced, or yeah, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah. Where my mind goes is, don't be afraid to admit that you don't know something, and then
Wow.
take that as a challenge to go find out. And regardless if it's agile or anything else, but it's just, I think that's one of the most difficult pieces to as a leader to admit, is like, ooh, I don't know that, and I want to go learn it. And so that's kind of where I would leave it, and hopefully others can feed off of that. But
Oh, you said that so well. How do I follow
How
that?
do you follow that one?
I know. I mean, I would probably say, just remembering that as people, we're always growing. And so taking a step to be a little bit uncomfortable in your growth and finding out what that is, whether it's investing in yourself in this leadership journey or similar, it's something that we all need to do as we continue on our path. And that investing in yourself, in leadership, in being a better leader, is not just for somebody like I had previously thought, like just somebody who's already a manager, or somebody who's, in the software world. Like that's where my mind had went when I thought about agile, and where I thought about, this leadership journey. And it really is a space for everybody. And no matter where you're at on kind of your career path, there's an opportunity to invest in yourself and learn more and grow, and grow in your career path. But I think Sonny said it perfectly.
Ditto.
thank you.
Both of you, I think, describe perfectly, capture, this catalyst leader, right? The courage to make a decision, or to take a step when you don't have all that information, or when it's scary, or, you don't know the outcome. And then the second thing is being comfortable in that mess, right? Because change and complexity and speed, and, our economy and everything that's going on right now in the world, right? It's messy. And how, as a leader, do you start getting comfortable in that uncomfort, and how do you start making decisions without all that data? So, to us, and the way we apply agile leadership and catalyst leadership, that's core. And I think you guys both described that incredibly well. So we might look at hiring you as salespeople. So thank you.
Thanks.
I might have to move
So
more towards the lion to get there.
So if you don't form a 70s band, we might have a job offer for you, as ALJ says.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both for sharing just a little bit of your experience through these programs. And I just want to say thank you for taking the time and the money it took and the energy it took to invest in yourself. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Pete. Thank you very much. The program has been absolutely wonderful. So well worth it.
Definitely.